This is going to be part 2 of the series of tutorials for completing your Word personal resume assignment. And by the end of part 1, we got to writing the heading 1 called objective, which some people, depending on your industry, you might call it goal. And some people like to call it profile. Usually I don't really see too many people calling it profile. But whatever you find is customary in your industry. And then a paragraph of about 40 to 65 words listing what is your objective. In a lot of ways, it's like an answer to the question why you're writing a resume. I'm writing a resume. You don't say I'm writing a resume, but after the word because, what you don't say is I'm aspiring to be this or that or start a career and so on. You don't actually write, I'm writing a resume because that's too obvious. But think of it as the answer to that question. After that, the next section, let's look at the requirements, is work experience, which you can write as experience or work experience. Really depends on your industry. So I'm going to use just the word experience because some people don't have actual paid job experience. So instead of calling it word experience, we're going to make it a little wider and just call it experience. And of course, this needs to be also a heading 1. So objective needs to be a heading 1, experience needs to be a heading 1. After that, you're going to list your jobs from new to old. So in other words, the most current one first. Some students tell me, but what if I'm young, I just finished high school, I started college, never really had, an actual job yet. That's fine. If you don't have anything to list as experience, list volunteer work. No one needs to know if you got paid for it or not. If you don't have volunteer work, anything that even if you helped someone in a project or something like that, you can list that. Anything that shows that you did something other than, just, watching Netflix and playing video games. As last resort, if you don't have any of that, you can list, like a dream job because, something you're aspiring to get. Kind of make up one, because the whole point of this exercise is not checking the accuracy of it, which, believe me, people do. What I'm teaching you is the right format. So I'm not going to check if you actually worked for Nike or didn't work for Disney. What I'm going to check is the format. So again, list experiences from new to old. Each item in its own section should have. Each item in this section should have line 1, the company name, then position. So first of all, the company name. Let's say that I worked for Nike, and the position name, and then the separator could be like Colin. I worked as a software designer, and you put whatever you did. This needs to be designated as a heading 2. Very important. If experience is heading 1, then the company and the job you did needs to be heading 2. It's also conventional to capitalize that, like all headings. Under that, you're going to put, let's read the requirements, the city and the state where that happened, and then the range of dates. City, states, range of dates. That doesn't need to be a heading. That could be like regular, normal text. So the city, let's say, was Miami, which of course is in Florida, and you can choose if it's going to be like the abbreviation FL or the full word Florida, and then some kind of separator. It could be the tab, or it could be just a space, or it could be a comma. I prefer a tab because it moves it away a little bit. And since this is supposedly my latest job, let's say that I started working there June of 2024, and I'm still working there, so I'm not going to put today's date. You're going to put the word present if you're still working there. Then the next few lines Of course, I'm going to save. Notice that this is, if I highlight it, it's normal. So heading 1, heading 2, normal. The next normal paragraph is going to be a list. So city, state, and the range of month and year. Then a bullet list of job responsibilities and functions. You need at least 2 of them because, one bullet is not really a list. And then you must change the bullet icon so it's not the default and not that checkbox that we might have done in other exercises. I want you to choose your own. So first of all, what I'm going to do is start writing. I was responsible for blah, 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 blah. You, of course, put some real stuff there. And I also managed blah, 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 and I supervised and maybe I also did, some more things in that job. And then, of course, once I have those things, I'm going to highlight them, just what I did, and make it into a bullet list. Once I make it into a bullet list, one of the things you need to do is change the bullet icon. So it's not the boring, like black bullet. How do I change the bullet icon? You can select it, you can go to the drop menu, and you can choose from the bullet library if one of them seems okay to you, or you can define your new bullet. This menu is going to look a little different for Mac or Windows. There are special fonts that are completely for icons. The one thing I'm asking you not to do is not to choose that checkbox that we used in probably another class exercise, if we did, and also not the one that I'm showing in the example, which is that arrow one. So just for the sake of this exercise, I'm choosing the arrow one, but I'm asking you not to choose it. I'm going to click OK, and you're going to choose a different one, a more interesting one. Next, now if I hit enter, it thinks that I want to type another bullet. So if I click enter again, it knows that I'm done with it. What I'm going to do next is my next most recent job, because a bullet of responsibilities, yours has to look different than this. So don't use this arrow and not the regular bullet. So I listed 2 jobs. Let's say that before I did Nike, I worked for, for ABC Inc. And my job title, just to be consistent with the way you listed it, my job title was basket weaver. That's what I did for a living. And what's important is that I highlight and make it also into a heading 2. So all my job titles are heading 2s. And it was in New York, space NY, and I'm using the tab to have like a little separator, and I worked there, let's say, from January of 2021 to right before I took on that job, which was, let's say, May of 2024. Again, the newest job on top and then the older one. By the way, people ask all the time, what if I have a gap? It's perfectly okay if you got a good logical explanation for having a gap between jobs, such as I was learning a new skill. I was taking care of a family member, and so on. It's perfectly human. Now, of course, this one is also, I'm going to copy paste, but you, of course, are going to have another one. You know what? I'm not going to copy paste. Let's say that on this job, I did this and I did that. Of course, I'm just making up stuff, but you're going to write stuff that's, more realistic. I organized this and organized. And I, supervised. Blah, 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 blah. Again, I'm going to make this into a bullet list, not the city and the date range, but just, the list of responsibilities. Chances are that it's going to default to the same kind of bullet list that you did before, and that, meets the requirement of being nice and consistent. Save. Let's say that we're done with experience. You don't need to list, if you had like 7 jobs, don't list all of them. If you had only 1, that's fine, list just 1. 2 or 3 are a good, number to have. Then the next section, again, I hit enter and then enter again, and it knows that I'm done with the list. The next section is going to be education. I have to say that as far as the order of sections, that changes from one industry to another. For instance, in the education industry, it's a lot more conventional to list education first and only then experience. In the IT industry, like software and so on, the section that we're going to have later called skills, a lot of times is right after your name, because they first of all want to know what your skills are, and only then your experience. As we will see when we are done reading the instructions, the order of the sections could be changed according to whatever fits your industry. So the more important thing is that you have an education section and that it's designated as heading 1. So experience is a heading 1, and objective is a heading 1, and also education is heading 1. The way you list education is this. Now, at least I know that for everyone who's doing this assignment, the first item in education is going to look very similar because you're all Broward College students. So your first item is you might not have graduated yet, but you are in Broward College. So you're going to list also from new to old, and your newest education, as far as I know, is being a student at Broward College. And on line 1, it's going to be the institution name and the degree. Example, I can even copy this. You are here at Broward College and you're pursuing a Bachelor's of Art, or let's say even an associate, or whatever the degree that you're hoping to get by the time you graduate. This needs to be a heading 2. So look at the requirements. Formatted as heading 2. Then on the second line, city, state, date range. So this needs to be a heading 2. Again, don't worry about the way it looks. We're going to talk about that in the next tutorial. Needs to be like this. The next one, city and state. Now, Broward College, regardless of which campus you're attending, the official address of Broward College is Davie, is the city of Davie. So Davie, Florida, space, or I used a tab, so I want to be consistent. And let's say that I started class August of 2024, and let's say that I have not graduated yet. In this case, you don't put present, you put your expected graduation. For work, we put, if we're still working there, we say present because we don't know when it's going to end. But for education, if we haven't finished it yet, we put expected graduation. Let's say December of 2026 or whatever. It's not, a commitment. It's an expectation. Then after that, again, a bullet list. And that bullet list, okay, so line 2, city, state, date range. If you're a current student, write something like the day you started or the month you started. no need for the day, just month. Expected graduation, and then the month and year. Then a bullet list of your major, your minor, your clubs, your accolades, your extracurricular activity. It doesn't have to be long as it has at least 2 items in the list. And of course, it needs to be consistent with the other bullet lists. So let's say that my major was basket weaving, not basket weaving, let's say child development. Child development, and maybe I don't have a minor, but if you have a GPA that's worth bragging about, that's a good place to put that. Let's say something like this, and also a member of anime club. And maybe one more thing, I'm also active in the student union. Usually I like lists to have at least 3 or 4 items. I'm going to highlight that, not the city state, but just, the things that describe, what I did or what I'm doing in my degree, and make it a bullet list, and it takes on the same style as my other bullet lists. I also expect, again, I hit enter and enter again, for every one of you to list before Broward College, every one of you had a high school experience. It could have been a real high school, an online high school, or a high school equivalency, like, a high school degree. So I expect that to be listed too. Let's say that the institute was, mega high school. And what you earned was a high school. High school is actually written as 2 words, even though we tend to kind of connect it. High school diploma. That needs to be, just like Broward College, needs to be a heading 2. And just like that, Broward College, after that needs to be the city, let's say Sunrise, Florida. And the others I put a comma. Just make sure you're consistent. And then I hit the tab key for a little space. And let's say that I went there from, let's say, September of 2022 all the way to August of when did I start college? 2024. Whatever, And again, a list of things you did in high school, what your major was, what maybe your minor, maybe clubs you belonged to, and, things like that. As a bullet list. Let me make that bullet list a little longer because I want to show you something. Again, list GPA if it's something worth listing, list clubs, activities, and so on. What I want to make sure is that you see is that we're almost down to the end of our first page. And in the past, it was a pretty big deal to make sure that your resume fits into one page. Not in the digital age anymore. Nowadays, more than fitting into one page is that the format is right, and if it's longer than one page, that it doesn't look accidental. So let's first deal with, what might look, accidental. Like right now, if I click enter, and my next section, see, I have this, is skills. I'm going to write the word skills. Skills needs to be a heading 1 because it's another major section. And right now, I was lucky that skills just, popped into, the second page. But what if it didn't? What if, let me make this a little shorter. What if I had only 2 items on my high school and skills found itself like, at the end of page 1? What I would do in this case to make it look intentional is right before that I would go to layout, I would go to breaks, and we learned this in class. I'm going to insert a page break, making sure that skills always starts on page 2, even if there's a little room left on page 1. And for skills, I'm going to list, I know how to, do this, and I know PHP, and I know Python, and I know how to, let me spell Python correctly, and I have a certificate in blah, 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 and a few more things. That list could be as long as you want to. It's still going to be a bullet list, but my recommendation is, especially when you apply for a job, that it matches the list of things that they are looking for. So this is something you're going to change constantly depending on the job that you are applying for. But in any case, under home, it needs to be a bullet list. So those are my skills. And now we're getting to the last section. Again, depending on your industry, skills might be higher on the list, as long as it is a heading 1. The next thing after skills, skills needs to be at least 4 things. Needs, not 1 or 2 skills, but at least 4. If the bullet list is longer than 4 items, consider formatting it as 2 columns. Let's actually show you how to do that. Let's say that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's even make it 8. I know how to do. If I want to make it look like 2 columns, I'm going to highlight it. And I'm going to go to layout, and under layout there's columns, and instead of 1 column I can force it into 2 columns. It actually makes it look pretty cool. The important thing is that whatever comes next is not going to be in 2 columns. So I'm going to type something, make sure that it's in 1 column. The next thing after skills, the next heading is references. References. And that needs to be also a heading 1. References formatted as heading 1. If you don't have any at the moment, make one up. You can even use my name, as long as it has the right format. It needs to have the full name of the person, referencing you. The reason that I'm not going to be that picky about it is from experience. Even if it is a real person, you need to ask for the permission, right? Can I put you on my resume as a reference? And sometimes they would, it would take them 2 weeks just to answer you. And, you don't want to miss the deadline for applying for a job. So for this assignment, as long as you have something that looks like the right format, I will accept it. So let's say that your reference is going to be this person named Dr. Joe D. Onda. And when you write down who's your, who is recommending you, or who can be contacted for reference, what you need to add is their title, where you met them, in what company or university, and then address, and then phone number or email. I don't have an email here, but here it lists that you got to have full name, degree or title, institution or company, address in 2 lines, phone and email. Again, even if it's a wishful thinking, it needs to look right. So let's say that you met this doctor because he was your professor at Atlantic university. And the address is and it's in Miami, FL, and their phone number, because they need to be able, at least theoretically, to contact them, is this, and their email is jd@gmail.com. And like we said, if you want to make that a link, you simply click space right after that. One reference is enough. If you have more, that's great. For this assignment, I think one is enough. Let's see. If you don't have one at the moment, make at least one up just for now. So references could be just one. Then optional information could be things that they didn't mention before, like volunteer work, accolades, awards, honors, as long as they are heading 1 and they are formatted the same as experience. So they're not required, but I can, if I wanted to, I can add one more section after that. That is, let's say, awards. As long as it's a heading 1, and as long as it has the same structure as experience. Let me copy this one just so I can, change it. So my awards include, let's say, National Piano Competition. And it took place in Miami, and I could just put, in this case, there's no date range, but just, the month and so on. And here you're going to list or not. This whole section is optional, and therefore you can list whatever you want. It could be just, if it is going to be a bullet list, it might as well be just, it needs to be at least 2 items, and it needs to match. Finally, we are getting to the last few steps, because the content is already there. The last few steps are about the look. And we're on requirement number 8. You may use one of the themes that are built into Words. Let me stop this tutorial, and in the next tutorial, I'm going to cover the last few steps that have to do with formatting, looks, and the format that you're going to submit.